we're about ready to get started with this next presentation. And that is going to be Chef Scott Brinker of Monument Health Hospital, Rapid City. And Cindy's there with him at the hospital. They're filming, and we are just getting their video and things here. So Cindy and Scott will be taking things over.
So I'd like to welcome everybody back to our dinner with Chef Scott Brinker.
Give her the mic.
Share.
There you go.
All right, so Chef Scott is the executive chef at Morrison Healthcare, a Monument. It's a company that runs food service at Monument Health in Rapid City, South Dakota. Scott's been here for 7 years, and as all of you who are local here know, Scott is probably the biggest local foods aficionado in western South Dakota. He's a passionate cook, baker, hunter, and very definite connoisseur of fine quality, good local food. So I'm going to turn it over to Scott, and he's going to walk us through our dinner menu this evening and all of the tricks and treats that he knows to share with us. Okay, Scott, off to you.
All right. Well, excuse the technical difficulties as we get rolling here. As she said, thank you, Cindy, very much. I'm Scott Brinker. I'm executive chef here at Rapid City Monument Health through Morrison Healthcare Food Service. We're coming to you live right now from inside the kitchen at the hospital. It's kind of interesting. I wanted to embrace this for a little bit to talk just a minute before we get started here about the kitchen. We feed anywhere from 2,000, 2,500 meals a day on up to 6,000 meals a day. From that, we source as much local as we can. Our local produce comes from local farmers, mainly Cedar Creek Gardens and Peggy Martin. We get a lot of our beef from Sydney here, from Evergreen Beef. We pull from our cheese from local producers, the fine fellows out there at Frankfurt, Case Meister cheese. So we don't do things like most hospitals or the hard knocks that you've heard about hospitals before. We try and make our food as medicine. We try and make our food as from scratch, as fresh, and trying to stick as local as possible. So tonight we're going to go through fairly typical fare of what we do here at the hospital, whether at our cafeteria, some of the meals that we do serve to our patients. So I base the whole menu on those type of things. So you will get a taste of what we do here and how we do it. So the first thing I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about the menu itself. I always need to bring some cheat sheets here, but we'll start out making an apple and jalapeno coleslaw. The jalapeno peppers do come from Peggy. The cabbage comes from Cedar Creek Farms. And we're going to put that together real quick. I'm going to start with scratch and talk about some knife skills. Then we'll move on to making a Argentine chimichurri. Shout out to my friend from down in New Mexico, Alfredo Gonzalez, who unfortunately passed away here recently, but he's the one that inspired that sauce, and I like to make it and throw a shout out to him when I can. We'll do a seared tenderloin from Evergreen Ranch. This is fresh, and he just had it aged and put out this morning. So we've got a nice piece of meat that we're gonna process from start to finish. It'll go fairly quickly. Then we'll do a mashed butternut squash, again local farms. We're gonna toast some Bell Valley ancient grains, and then we're gonna make one of my old-fashioned favorites, memories that come back to me from my childhood and my grandma down in Texas in a buttermilk pot. So we'll get started here right away. We're going to run through this. The first thing that we're going to do, like I said, is we're going to make this apple and jalapeno coleslaw. So I've got our ingredients here. The first thing that I'm going to do is take a minute to pay homage to my Morrison employers, talk a little bit about safety. What this is a cut glove. This glove saves my hand from lots of cuts and nicks and burns, and I don't go without it. So whenever I'm going to handle a knife, I put this cut glove on the other hand, and then we'll throw a little glove over it. Make sure that we keep it sanitary. Sorry, technical difficulties. I'm going to talk a little bit about the food as we do it. So we'll start out with some apples.
Oh, no.
I'm going to bring two different kind of apple, the sweet apple and the tart apple, just to get the combination of flavors together, give you a little bit more apple flavor, and then you get the clash of flavors too. That's pretty important. When you're eating, you should be able to taste the different foods, have the different textures, taste the freshness. That's the most important thing. So we'll go over a little knife technique. Kind of how I like to do it, how I teach my cooks how to do it, is I've got my piece here. I want to start with a flat bottom. Put the flat bottom on your cutting surface. The cut glove saves a lot of wear and tear, but the big thing is to keep your fingers back. Keep the knife tip on the cutting board and more of a slicing motion than a chopping motion. This gives you a lot more control of your knife. It's going to save a lot of wear and tear on your fingers.
There we go.
We're going to do a nice fine julienne cut on these guys. Like where we have a nice apple flavor.
If it jumps out.
Hey Dan, can you grab me a little mixing bowl when you get a chance, please? There's another nice thing about going live in the kitchen for the working thing. I've got my sous chef Dan LaChance over here, ready, willing, and able to help me out whenever we need it. So now we'll do the red apple. Julienne is just a little stick cut. So typical when you think of coleslaw, you think of just cabbage. Well, we like to serve. Adding different flavors and different textures, and then a different dressing, slaw becomes a whole new animal. So using fresh fruit, apples, you can use pineapple, you can use different herbs, mints. So today we're going to use apple. Typically I'd be using a regular type head cabbage, but today, due to circumstances beyond my control, and the fact that we work in a busy kitchen, all my cabbage got used up today. So Peggy, we'll be ordering more cabbage next week if you got it. There again, I want this bok choy is what we're going to use in place of. Again, this has got kind of a little bit of more of a sweeter flavor. It holds its crunch very well. It stands up to a lot of abuse for the different vinegars and other items that we use for dressing. Just enough to keep that crunch on there. I'll pull my recipe over here a little bit closer so I can share with you a little bit of the quantities. Started out with 2 apples. We've got them julienne cut. I've got a cucumber now. Now, the important thing that when you're making salads with cucumbers, a lot of times, especially as a salad that we're going to use a vinaigrette. A vinaigrette dressing is going to draw out the moisture inside of like especially a cucumber. So I want to get these seeds out because that's where all the water of the cucumber is. So I'm going to just take a little spoon. I'm going to run it just right down the edges and pull those little seeds right out. And that's going to save you, if you make a cucumber salad at home, you put a whole slice of cucumber in there, and what happens is pretty soon it's sitting in like a big pool of water. And that's all the water that's coming out of the seeds. You can kind of see it happening here on the cutting board for us. We'll just run this spoon up, and we're going to get rid of that, and that's going to make sure that your salad doesn't get all waterlogged. There we go. So I want this in just a little bit smaller pieces. So again, smaller bites makes for the salad. I'm going to go ahead and throw this whole cucumber in there. By the way, Peggy grows awesome cucumbers. I don't know if you get the chance to stop by and get some of her produce, but she does an amazing job on this. Yeah, there we go. Got it all cut up. I'm just going to add that right into that bowl. Try and keep the seeds out of there. And this salad is going to be, it's quick, it's easy to put together, it holds up for a while, and you can use all kinds of local ingredients. And that's, the nice thing, the whole power of food is that we've spent so much time and effort in our busy, busy lives to just make food more of a convenience and less of an art form. We add a little bit of carrots to it. And I just think that's where we all go wrong as a society. I think we should celebrate our food and make food as a medicine. When you've got the power of food and the power of food as a medicine working for you, you make that decision and the healing starts, the lifestyle starts at your next meal. I like a little cilantro in mine, so I'm going to cut that up nice and fine. I think that we use about 2 tablespoons. And so in my world, that's just about what I got here. Cilantro in there. Now, big thing, I love using a lot of peppers. I use jalapenos, I use habaneros, I use serranos, all up and down the line as far as heat goes. And now, people don't understand that a jalapeno pepper, if you went and took a big bite out of a jalapeno pepper, it's going to get your attention. But when I use it in cooking, I just want the flavor more than the heat a lot of times. And so you can I'm trying to say gauge that, you can control that by how much of the seeds and the ribs that you put in. For this, I want the flavor of the jalapeno in it, but I don't want a lot of the heat. I want it to let you know that it's there, but I don't want a lot of heat. So what I do is I start right along the side of the jalapeno pepper, and I cut the meat out, leaving the ribs and the seeds behind. Now, the more heat you want, the further up the pepper you cut. You pull a little bit more seed in there. So I got a little bit of seed in there, so I'm going to add a little bit of heat, but not a lot. Mostly it's just going to be the flavor of the jalapeno. And I want 2 full fresh jalapenos. Right now you've got the whole line there. And we'll do a nice fine dice because I want that flavor to get in there and spread around.
Someone asked a question.
And now if you were quick with the eye, you saw me hit my finger with that knife with that cut glove on. I didn't get cut. So you're watching all those silly guys on TV hacking and chopping with a knife, and they cut the finger. Well, you know what? These save a lot of wear and tear. So we got a crooked one. I'm going to cut it a little bit funny. And again, the same thing. We'll just do a nice fine dice. That's it's a little bit clunky with a knife on the deal. People want to chop. That's why your blades on your knife are always dull. You slice, it keeps your blades up. And once you get kind of used to the motion, you're every bit as fast doing a slice versus a chop.
Can I share your recipe, Scott?
Yep, absolutely. You can put that up there. Now 2 whole fresh jalapenos. Both starting to get a little bit full. Now a little bit of sweet red pepper. Sweet red pepper adds a little bit of flavor to it. What it's going to really do though is make the colors pop. And so that's a lot of things when you eat. When you look down at your dinner, you're going to see it first and you're going to smell it long before you taste it. If you like what you see and you like what you smell, the food will always taste much, much better. So I'm going to do the same thing. And the sweet pepper, the white parts, and the seeds have a little bit of a bitterness to it. So not a lot, a little. It's the difference between making a good meal and a great meal, though, in my book. So I'm going to take the extra second to pull those little ribs out and make sure that I don't have any of those seeds out of the pepper in there. And then the same thing, I want this to be the same size and the same shape as my green peppers. So the red and green can kind of mix together and give you that color pop. So with my guide gone, I'm going to use about a half of this red pepper because that looks just about right to me. Now, they've always said cooking is an art form. So as you're cooking, you're looking at a recipe, and you're thinking of something else, use the recipe as a guide. And you're going to make your own work of art, your own little piece of history, and it'll be good enough, and it'll be your own. So you can see now we're starting to get a lot of different shapes and colors and textures in there. I do believe I want to add a little bit of zest from an orange. Now, in my career, I started out when I was 14. I'm 58 now, so I've been cooking for a long, long time. I've run into fads of my own, different flavors, different things, kind of appeal to me, things where they maybe not before. And as I've gotten older, citrus appeals to me. Orange, lemon, lime, I love it. It fits good on everything. I found that most of the flavor that you have in an orange is in the peel. Not the whole peel, the orange part of the peel. And that's what you want to do when you hear or read in a recipe, you want the zest. The zest is just the colored part of the outer peel. You don't want to dig into it too much. So I've got this little guy here. It's going to be nice and fine. And we're just going to lightly rub it across the skin. I use a little circular motion. I don't know why, because it makes me feel like I'm getting more of the zest off of there. And you see it kind of building up in my zester. And again, if you're quick with the eye, you saw I got my hand. There again, wearing a little cut glove. Clumsy as it is, I don't have a nick on my hand. I don't have to stop and go put a Band-Aid on or worry about what's happening there. And there we go. We got a little zest. It's going to give it a little bit of a citrus zippity doodah. Now, as with everything, you want just a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. And for the sake of speed, I've already made this up. And what I make here to go with this is a honey lime mustard vinaigrette. And so what it boils down to is about a tablespoon of Dijon mustard, 2 tablespoons of lemon zest, and about 6 tablespoons of olive oil, a little salt, a little pepper, and then what makes it sweet is the honey. So I use about as much oil and honey as together. I'm going to pour a little bit of that over my dressing or over my salad.
So you can pull out a little bit. So you can pull back.
Toss that
Because his
together.
mic cord is in the way. That's why he can't. Oh, okay.
And then my favorite part of any dish I don't get the wires caught in my foot, is the sample. So I want to get a little bit of everything in there. I want a little apple, I want a little jalapeno. Yeah.
Okay. Now we're cooking a little more.
So, we'll just give you depending on how much you like the salad. It presents itself. Won't need a lot of garnish. You don't need a lot of pizzazz to it. It just looks nice and colorful. It's bright and crunchy. It works whether it's summertime fall, winter, it's always there for you. So, moving along. Now, this is where I've got to get whole different section. This part I didn't practice too much, so we're going to learn together. This is our Argentine chimichurri. This is a great sauce. It goes very well on meat, especially meat that you cook outdoors. You get a lot of char, the sear, the chimichurris are really garlicky, fresh citrus flavors, lots of fresh herbs, a little bit of nuttiness, plenty of olive oil. Olive oil makes everything great. And it's so easy and so fast because you get to use kitchen helper. So the first thing that you start out doing on this is I like to roast my peppers on this. Hatch chilies are the way to go. If you're down in New Mexico, you want to get a good chili. Hatch peppers are fantastic. I'm going to kind of real quick to show a little bit of the method to roast at home. I use a gas burner. You can put it in the oven at a high temperature. The biggest thing that you want to do is blister the skin. Get the skin completely black. Cooks the meat just enough that it's still firm, but it brings out the sweetness. And it gets rid of that skin, which can kind of texture-wise is just a little bit of a nuisance. So I get the flame going. I just set it right
Tell
on
Sandra
top
we'll
of
get
there.
back to her.
That's what that's going to do. Start blistering that skin. Makes it easy to peel that off. Now you can do this over an open fire outside on a barbecue grill, and then you put that smoky flavor into it. It just adds a little bit more complexity and a little bit more of that earthy goodness, you know, of a good sauce. You can see it starting to happen there. You take your time, I'm going to set that aside, and you cook it until it looks like this little guy right here. Nice and black. You see that comes off. I'm going to grab my little gloves here.
Hey, Scott, we had a question on the dressing recipe again.
Okay.
What
So-
was it? Dad.
Somebody missed how you made that.
Oh, the honey mustard dressing. It's like about a tablespoon of a good Dijon mustard, about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of fresh lime juice, about 4 tablespoons of honey and 4 tablespoons of olive oil, and then I just buzz it in the blender real quick to emulsify it. The mustard's going to do a couple things. It's going to bind the oil and the acid up from the lime, and then it also has a mustard thing. I like using that in a lot of my vinaigrettes, just to hold it together. Now mayonnaise will do the same thing.
2 lines? 2 lines?
About 2 tablespoons of lime. Put on my little gloves here. Make myself a little bit of a hole.
That's great.
And then take my peppers. I want to get that char off of there. Now I'm going to put that on there. We get that off. Now, if I cook this outside on a barbecue grill, I'd want to leave some of that on just to get that smoky charcoal flavor, the outdoor flavor on it. And again, like with all peppers, you need the heat that's in there. You need the bitterness. It's right there in the seeds and the ribs. But we'll just take those right off. Get rid of the stem. Get rid of a few of those seeds. See if I can get rid of that there little stringy guy. Yeah, it's gonna hang on tonight. Sometimes it happens for you. Sometimes you roll with the punches. Here we go. So we got one. Put that guy right in there. Get what we can off of there. I don't know. I've really, over the course of my life, I've always liked spicy foods. But as I get older and older, I can, for one, withstand a little bit more heat than I did when I was younger. But I understand the power of the pepper. With the capsicums and the elements within the pepper that gives it the heat, also at different levels gives it a different flavor. Where they're grown, where they come from, how much water they get, how much acid is in the soil, brings different flavor. So I've learned to use more and more types of peppers, and to get just different kinds of flavors. Go good with everything, and you can't beat the nutritional value of peppers. They've got so much that's good for you. Lost my little cheat sheet, so I forgot how much garlic is in there, but that much garlic, and that's more to your flavor. You know how much garlic you want. Some people like a lot of garlic in it. I like a little bit of garlic, but not a lot. Now the herbs, I've got parsley, I've got oregano, and I've got cilantro. Now, like a typical chimichurri from Mexico, has mostly cilantro in it, but in different areas, just making sure I had my olive oil in. That's what's enough. Yeah, you get on. There and there. Just a little bit of red pepper. I do like a little heat in there.
Olive oil, sir.
Thank you.
Participants.
So, little new guy I got from Peggy out at Cedar Creek Farm. I get a lot of my produce from her. So this is what I use. This stuff that she brings me. Every week, fresh look comes in, and I get a big old flatbed full. Again, I'm going to put it in the blender, so I'm not going to worry about too much about how big I cut it off, because it's all going to get minced in little bitty tiny pieces in a matter of a couple seconds. My little Vitamix blender. So, like that. I like using the lime juice. You see a lot of recipes use lemon juice or even just vinegar. Well, again, I'm a lime kind of guy. I guess it goes for my tendency to really drink a lot of tequila. It all goes together. So we're going to use off of 3 lines. It's always fun when the dog's in the house, maybe when you're cooking and something like that happens. Good for a laugh. If you use like those typical hard hat kind of ones without a little bit later, I think you kind of pull the tip part of a citrus, the white part of the peel, holds a significant amount of bitterness.
Audio's cutting out again. Yep.
And it's just the little things like that I like to kind of pull out of there. You get much cleaner, more complex flavors without anything kind of interrupting the palate. So using this guy and this sauce, this is going to let all the flavors of the lime juice come through, all the fresh herbs come through. Without anything to interrupt it. Trying to use local foods, it would be cool if we could use local South Dakota grown limes. But I don't know if they grow that well here, especially in November. But it'd be cool if they did. I'd buy it. All right. Now, we're going to put just enough olive oil in it. I want it about even with the top of what all the ingredients are here. So I believe
Still cut now? Audio issues continue.
And then to add a little bit more, just a little bit of a kicker, a lot of chimichurri sauces that ask for like walnuts or pine nuts. My southern roots pop up pecans. My grandma was a big influence on my life, culinary life, and we had pecans out in the backyard. So pecans find their way in a lot of my dishes. But anyway, I'm going to toast them. When you toast a nut, especially a fresh nut, you don't want to get it too hot. All the nutritional value of the nut lies within the oils, and the oils within a nut are very volatile. I mean, they're going to dissipate really quick. So I just want to toast it enough to break that oil so it comes out and gives a little bit of a richer flavor. Now, if you're not after the nutrition side, before you cook it, the sweeter, the nuttier it gets. But I'm just going to cook this a little bit. I turn the flame up completely high, and we're just going to give that a second to get rolling.
Hey, Scott, we had a question. Are your kitchen scraps composted?
My kitchen scraps are composted. That's one thing that we started out here 4 years ago. That's 5 years ago. Time flies when you're having fun. Is that we started a herb garden out front. Well, the herb garden started out as 2 raised beds, and then it grew to 6. Then it grew to 6 with a big barbecue pit. Now it's down to 4 with an even bigger barbecue pit. But I have raised bed gardens up on the just on the outside of the hospital grounds here. I have an area of approximately 250 feet by 400 feet that I have in gardens. That includes a greenhouse, and then we compost the coffee grounds, all the vegetable scraps. All go up there, decomposted and recycled. Yes, we do quite a bit of composting. This is about 500 to 600 pounds a week.
So it's like a different way of picking up.
We can create a lot of sources. So now I just kind of see this a little bit of the sizzle going on in there. Start to get a little bit of a dive to it. So that's where I want to go. I want to break the oil. Down.
We'll see if that, well, that might be so if someone who can tell us, it's going to tell you if I need that.
The great thing that saves you a lot of repair bills is make sure you plug it in before you want to apply it. There. That makes it a little bit different. Now I'm going to start this out a little bit lower.
Pardon me?
Audio is still in and out.
Tap on your mic for a sec so you can see.
Hello, working?
Should this be on?
Yeah, on. It's working good.
You need to let this one run just a little bit to get all the herbs incorporated. And slowly speed it up. You get a nice smooth.
Hey, Scott, what's your favorite meal to make?
Favorite meal to make? I don't know. You know, I get asked that a lot. Really, I like cooking. I like making a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot more to what I do than just cooking. I've got a little over 100 people that work here in the kitchen for me. It's really not so much the cooking as it is the teaching, is making good food, learning how to use fresher ingredients. People like Dan that bought into the system and has stuck around for years and advanced. I love to cook. I love to cook a lot of things. It depends on what my mood is in for the day, but my specialty is I'm a chef. I like to inspire people to eat better, eat fresh food, and be more in tune with the story.
Oh,
So
yeah,
again,
here it comes.
we'll go for the taste. I don't know. I kind of lose track of what I'm doing sometimes. See, that's why you taste it, because I forgot, put a little salt in there. A little salt, a little pepper. Surprising what a little salt and pepper can do for anybody's dish.
So Scott,
I'm not going to double dip, I'll use the back.
there's a question on a recommendation for olive oil types.
Yep.
Do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, here's the deal with olive oil. And this is kind of, I don't have a lot of information to substantiate this, but I find that sometimes the olive oils out of Italy and Sicily are kind of suspect. They really have a different flavor. Like, I'm almost wondering if they get cut with a vegetable oil. So actually, it's the California olive oils that tend to have a lot better flavors to me, or something really heavy from Greece. But that's because I just love those really heavy, bold flavors sometimes. For every day, for what I use around the house, what I use here, my olive oil comes from California. Yeah, a couple things. You know, it's about as local as olive oil can get. We're helping our people here in the country, and I don't believe it gets adulterated. There's reason why we have regulations on our food service industry. So California olive oils are the way to go. Okay, so we got the chimichurri there. I got to take a second to clean up my mess here and get ready for the next mess. We're going to let this chimichurri just kind of hang out over here and percolate. I'm going to pull it off, unplug it. One thing I learned working in the commercial kitchen is to unplug your stuff when you're not using it. Prevents a lot of accidents. Bad stuff happens. So I'm going to get rid of this. And now we'll just kind of, things will go hopefully a little bit quicker here for us.
Here, where can I take it? I'll be your assistant.
Our little cart's gone. You just set it on the table.
Right here.
Right behind us. I think what we do now is I'm going to get some squash going for you. This is kind of an easy one. Now, good old fresh butternut squash, right from the White River Valley at Cedar Creek Farms. Good chef is a messy chef. Now, all I'm going to do on this is I'm going to cut it in half, right down the middle. There again, keep your hand away from the blade, fingers away, and up. And there you go. Look at these beautiful squash. Isn't that the most beautiful thing you ever seen in your life?
Show it to us.
Look at those guys. That's nutrition, sweetness. And you know, I know the story of my food. I can go see these growing. I can look at the dirt, I can smell the dirt, and I can talk to the farmer. Doesn't get any better than that. So,
Those are Cedar Creek?
these are from Cedar Creek, yep. So, now, on this particular dish, I'm going to pull the seeds out before I cook it. And a lot of the roasted squash that I make a lot of dishes using spaghetti squash here and these butternut squash. I'm going to roast that face down like this with the seeds still in it. There's a lot of flavor in those seeds, and they will, as you roast, get into the meat a little bit. I think it gives a little bit richer flavor. Maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm not, but I just like it that way. But for this one, I want to put some sweetness and butter into it. So I'm going to do a maple and butter roast. So I'm going to take my little spoon here, and I'm just going to do a quick scrape. And we'll get all those little seedies out. Just because we're going to turn this into
we're going to picture this as like almost like a mashed potato. So we don't necessarily have to do this one through the magic of the kitchen. But what I do like to do for something like this, I'm going to cut myself a little flat spot right on the bottom. Put it in the middle of my pan. And now,
Whoa, back up. What was that cool little trick?
which one? No.
The little flat spot on the bottom.
Oh, the flat spot on the bottom? Yeah, there you go. Flat spot on the bottom. Now look at that. It doesn't rock and roll across the pan for me. Now I need to make a little bit of a trip for my butter.
Was that a chef pro tip?
Well, I don't know. It could be. You get so used to just kind of doing things that, and you know what? You know, I use olive oil a lot for the flavor and a lot for the health benefits, but I don't believe butter is such a bad thing either, really. You know, it's butter comes from nature, and for how many generations have we ate butter? And we didn't have near the problems that we had before. So when we started replacing butter with synthetic fats, that we started having the health issues that we have now. So I think evolution has assisted us in actually being able to handle these types of fats. A little bit, I guess. Yeah, I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a scientist. But anyway, back to the food. We got some melted butter on that. Good old heavy duty real maple syrup, and I'm gonna pour a little bit is good, then a lot is better. And I like a little pool of it in here because that's all gonna cook and roast itself inside there, and then we can use that to help flavor our little mash. And again, a little salt. And we use kosher salt during the cooking process in our hospital anyway. I think it just gives it just a clean, saltier flavor. And then I'm going to put that in. You're cooking this at home. Use a 350 degree oven. It's going to take you a good hour and a half. You just want it to get just where it's the soft side. Now, Andy, take it out. It's multiplied itself into two. And voila, it's cooked. See, it's nice and soft in there. I got a little puddle of flavor here and another big, nice, beautiful pool of deliciousness there. And then what do? Add just a little bit more just to make us happy. Now, on the outside, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape this out of here and into a mixing bowl, which of course I didn't pull over here in the first place. It's a little red guy underneath there, Cindy, if you could, that red bowl right there. Yep. Meanwhile, while that's making its journey up here, the red.
Oh, the red.
I forgot my cashews. Yep, the whole mixer. Yep. Well, that's coming over. I'm going to start another roast procedure. Now I've got these wheat grains. We're going to do it right here where we can see what's going on. And all I did was I cooked these grains, just a little bit of soak them in just a simmering water. I didn't boil them, just soak them. It took about 20 minutes, and now they're nice and tender. Now I'm going to just take it and put just a little bit of olive oil on them. Stir it around. A little salt, a little pepper. To a hot pan.
And that's from Bell Valley Ancient Grains?
This is from Bell Valley Ancient Grains. And they're just like those nuts. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to start putting a little color on them. I'm going to let these cook a little bit longer than what I do the regular nuts. And a pan. I am going to Heat up a little bit of cream to help make my little mashed potatoes, or mashed squash a little bit creamier and mashier.
I gotta get you some of that Stensland Farm heavy cream. It sounds delicious.
And there we go. I want to do the same thing to this. You hear it sizzling and popping, kind of like Rice Krispies, and that's not going to get quite that crispiness out of it, but we are going to make it taste delicious. And I'm going to use that as a topping for my dish that goes along with this. But while we're heating that up,
Hey Scott, you had a question about how you feel about meals like HelloFresh, like fresh meals, like
are those the ones that you ordered and they ship it online?
like the meal prep kits.
Well, that's better than going down and buying something out of the grocery store freezer and heating it up in the microwave. I mean, I think that's a great idea, kind of depending on where it comes from. If it's local, then I think that's great. Because you're getting it nice and fresh. You can track the story of your food. If it comes out of Mexico or Nevada or Arizona or something, where did it really come from? What were they really growing it in? What were they spraying on that? We don't know. Beautiful, beautiful. I can go watch this being grown and I know what goes into it.
So you had a question on for somebody with celiac, what would be a good replacement for the Bell Valley Ancient Grains dish?
Bell Valley Ancient Grain Barley, chickpeas. Chickpeas would be a delicious replacement for that. So I'm just going to scrape all that meat off of the skin. It comes right off of there. Nice and bright orange. Lots and lots and lots of vitamin A, potassium, just fresh goodness grows on these squashes. And in South Dakota, everything grows a little better in South Dakota, but we're particularly good growing our squash. So a little bit of butter. And maple syrup, when in the first place, a little bit is good, then a lot more is better. So I'm going to put just a little bit more maple syrup and just a little bit more butter in there. Another little pinch of salt and pepper. Get my handy dandy. Now this KitchenAid, we use KitchenAid in the hospital like anywhere else, and don't that look like the one you got at home? Mine at home is almost as old as I am. I'm just going to run a little bit of a mash and get that started. And now this is going to be really creamy and really soft. And so a lot of times what I like to do with most dishes that I do at this level, I want a little texture in with it too. So I'm going to, again, this is a fresh diced jalapeno pepper. I'm just going to put a little bit of that in there. That's going to give us a nice color. And again, the sweet pepper. We're not going to taste this a lot in there, a little bit, but not a lot. It's going to give us color, and it's going to give us texture. And then a little bit of fresh parsley. I scalded that cream. You can kind of see that it's got that skin on it. I probably don't want to use all of that because we're nice and creamy in there as it is. But I'm going to pour just a little bit of that in there. Turn it on nice and slow. Now give it the old whipperoni. And check that out. Look at that go. Now, how's that instead of mashed potatoes? I know I had another spoon here somewhere.
Oh, not so fast, Chef. Try another taste.
Oh, I love that. That's the best. South Dakota grows the best squash. If you're not eating some of this squash, you're missing out. I tell you that much. That is some of the best tasting stuff. A little bit of maple, a little bit of butter, a little bit of saltiness. All right, so we're shooting through this. So now we've got our little mashed squash. I'm gonna go right now. Clear me off another little spot here. I'm going to use that cream again in a minute, so I'll keep it handy. I'm going to move that out of the way.
Okay.
And we're going to pull out the centerpiece of the meal. Now, if y'all know me, you know I love my evergreen grass-fed, grass-finished meat. Grown, bred, finished on some of the best grass in the world. Because we grow good squash here in South Dakota, we grow even better grass. But I don't know about you, I'm not a big grass eater. So lots of protein, lots of good things in grass, but cows take that and turn that into a luscious piece of meat. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to break this down here real quick. I'm going to reach back over here and grab the rest of my trusty equipment boards. That's all the great stuff that I need on here. So what I'm going to do on this particular meat, this is the tenderloin. This is going to be a nice, tender, soft piece of meat. Now with a lot of grass-fed, grass-finished, I want to go in really hot right off the bat, and then go very, very, very slow and let it cook to about a medium. That's about 145-degree internal temperature. That helps break down the collagens, and it helps tenderize the meat just a little bit. You know, the beautiful thing about these grass-fed, grass-finished Criollo cows, they hold a lot of the fat and the juice inside the muscle tissue. Now, the muscle tissue is porous. When you add heat to it, it'll be like a balloon, and it pops, and you start losing the juice. So if you go nice and slow and keep your temperature from getting too high, you know, and I know that some people like well-done meat, some people like medium-rare meat. We can learn how to eat about a nice medium. You know, you'll get the best of both worlds. I personally like to eat my meat about medium rare. That's probably what we'll go with on this today, just for demonstration purposes. But just to kind of show you how to break it down, this is what you get. This is the whole piece. Now, it has this silver skin on it, which is gristle. It's actually like a ligament or a tendon. I didn't pay that close attention in physiology class to know exactly which one was which here, but I'm going to get that trimmed off of there. And whether you get your tenderloin.
Chef, can you give us a pause just for 1 second while we swap batteries?
Absolutely. Battery check.
There we go.
Back up.
Thank you for your patience, Chef.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Okay, I'm gonna clear all this off of here, and then real quick, I'm gonna break this down into a little bit smaller piece for
Check that the videos on the audio's on USB.
and I'm just gonna take a nice piece right out of the middle here.
Sure.
The rest of this is all really good meat. Trust me that it's all going to go into some nice steaks. We'll be eating fine in the neighborhood. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to sear this. So like I said, with the tenderloin meat, I'm going to go with a high heat, and then I'm going to let it rest. So I'm going to sear the outside very, very hot. I'm going to start my pan heating up right now. I want it to get nice and smoky. I've got a little bit of olive oil in the pan. So I'm going to take olive oil. Olive oil, when it flashes and starts smoke, it turns brown, it takes on a bitter flavor. So you need to kind of keep an eye on it. And when you get, it just starts to throw a little wisp of smoke, that's when it's ready for something like this. In the meantime, I'm going to make a little paste here to rub it with. We're going to give it a little bit. And ideally, you can do this the day before and let it sit overnight. We're going to take a little bit of Dijon mustard, some nice fresh minced garlic, some fresh thyme, and a little bit of parsley. The beautiful, beautiful thing about having local farmers growing in greenhouses, I can get a lot of really good fresh herbs pretty much all the time. I grow it right out in front of the hospital, so it's nice and sunny outside. Believe me, my cooks love it. They grown that they had something new to do. I'm gonna put a little olive oil in there, and what else? Salt and pepper. I'll be a little bit more liberal with that here. Now, I'm just going to kind of turn that into a little bit of a paste.
Garlic, mustard.
Could you just run through those ingredients real quick one more time?
Okay, we had a little bit of garlic, fresh herbs, Dijon mustard, olive oil, salt, pepper. The herbs I used was thyme. I love thyme on beef, especially when you're using it with like a mustard and a little bit of acid. Just a little bit of lime juice. And we're going to make a real ugly paste out of it. But like I said, if you could put this on the night before and let it sit overnight with this on there, then those flavors kind of move all through the meat. So I'll put that on. And then use my field expedient God-given spreading tools. And just make a mess. Sometimes good things come in a messy package. A little more salt.
I think someone asked a question about cooking grass-fed beef versus conventional beef, and if there's any special things they should keep aware of.
Well, the more that, if you like your grass-fed meat a little bit more well done, use lower temperatures. Go lower, go slower. There's not as much marbling in there. There's just as much fat and juices, but there's not the marbling in there. Therefore, it have a tendency to it'll seize up on you if you go too hot or too long. The muscle will seize, basically tighten up, just like you do when you make a fist. It tightens up. So with grass finished like a roast, you want to not go nice and slow. On a steak, the same thing. You want to hit it hot and get it turned down and then cook it to the temperature that you want. I just like that nice crusty grilled flavor on it. With a regular piece of like a corn fed or a stock finished or a feedlot finished cow, there's a lot more available fat that'll break loose right there and keep the meat moist and won't allow that to seize up. So that's the big difference. So I'm going to take this with all its glorious junk on there. My pan is just starting to smoke. So this is going to make a lot of noise. We might get some fire on it too, which will be kind of cool. So believe me, I haven't forgotten these guys yet. These will come in handy in just a minute. I'm going to use that little bit of oil in there. Kind of keep it moving around. Like I said, I want to start trying to, I don't know if you can see it from there, getting a little bit of a black crust on it. That's kind of what I want. I want that nice color get going on. I want to cook it nice and evenly because we're going to set it aside and let it rest while I do a few other things. And then when it comes time to slice it and present it, we'll have a chance to settle down. Now, you cook it with these high heats like this, especially if you're using garlic. You notice I'm getting a lot of the garlic is burning off of the sides. I kind of just try to keep that away from the meat. I move the meat away from that. That does get a little bit of bitterness to it. Not enough to where you really notice it, unless you get a lot of it on there. Typically, when you do this on an outdoor grill, you want your coals as hot as you can get it, and just keep turning it and turning it. And that cooks it nice and even, allows it to get that flavor.
Do we have time to swing around and get a closer look?
Oh yeah, yeah. This will.
All right, we're coming around. Come on, Sophia.
You know what? I can bring it right over here too.
Too late.
Too late. We're coming over.
We're coming in.
I'm kind of holding it away, so I'm not getting that blackness on there. You can see the nice char starting to form on there. And then I just use a little bit of the oil from time to time when I need to get it a little bit of a sizzle.
It's incredible. You want to talk to it a little bit directly while you're cooking?
Yeah. You know, I'm getting things are getting just a little bit out of control here, but I'm getting about the color on my meat, so I'm going to switch it to a different pan. Because, like I said, the blackness, you want to kind of keep that away from there. That's basically burnt garlic, and I don't want that on the meat there. That is getting the aroma. We're getting a nice nutty crust on the outside. But I don't want to overpower it with the black stuff that we're getting on the sides here. So I'm just gonna. And now you kind of see as I talk about it, you notice the piece of meat, the length of the meat. I got it on the heat. It's fatter and it's shorter, so it wants to seize up. But being that this is the tenderloin, we don't have to worry about that. Okay. Now, for the sake of having this beautiful meat, we're a nice rare right now. So I'm going to move this to my backup pan. Let that go do its thing. I'm going to let that get back up to the same heat. This is what you call adaptive cooking. We don't make mistakes. I didn't really intend for that to turn black, but it did. So I'm changing what I'm doing, and I'm putting it on here, and now I'm going to flash it with a little red wine and finish it. Once we get it back up to heat. I always tell my guys, they're always, my guys and my gals, I'm sorry, I have just as many of everybody back here cooking with us. We've got people from all over the world that cooks there. that cook here. They bring lots of good techniques, a lot of good ideas. The guy Dan back there is cooking soups for tomorrow from scratch. So he'll get them all cooked up this evening, and he'll get them cooled down, and they'll sit overnight in the blast chiller, and he'll let all those flavors come together, and everybody will like their soup tomorrow. All right.
Should I be heading back around to the other side?
Yeah, it's getting just about time. I mean, why don't you hang out for just a second here as we get some heat? What I have here is just plain old cheap grocery store box style wine. When it comes to cooking, I've always been kind of the cheaper the grapes are, the sweeter the taste of the wine kind of guy. So if I'm going to pay anything over like $10, $12 for a bottle of wine, I'm going to drink it. I don't want to be pouring it on that. To get the cheaper stuff, I think it just, it adds just a, I don't know, a little bit better flavor in the cooking process. So we're just going to give a little fire. And that'll start a nice little sauciness there on the bottom. Alrighty, I'm going to call it. Shut off the heat. And then for the beautiful thing here in the good old kitchen, I've got a hot oven just waiting for it to go on in. So we're going to put that into the oven. And then I'm going to shut the oven off. The oven is at 350 degrees. Now I'm going to shut it off. And so just let the temperature go down. Now we're going to let it sit in there. It's going to take probably about 10-15 minutes now to go through the rest of our program here and get set up. And when that comes out, it should be a nice medium rare. So again, let me clean a bowl. Nope.
These are all Scott's. I'm just reviewing them for you.
There you have it. Nope. Just flipping over a little bit.
Put on a clean pair of hands.
Oh, here we go.
You want to show these, right, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. You were at last year's conference. Some of these things might look familiar.
Yep.
Same program.
One more.
Comes a good one.
Good.
Up here. And we start anew.
Pardon me?
All right, Jim.
We're good. We're in. Just
Now, a little bit about this recipe. I said some of my fondest memories of being as a young child and starting to get into food was being about 4 or 5 years old and cooking with my grandma Flossie down in Texas. She was from Tennessee and married my grandpa, and they moved to Texas. She was a great cook, typical Southern Belle type cook. And I used to really help her out a lot. I'm sure she looked forward to me jumping up at 4 o'clock in the morning and pulling my little chair up next to the stove and helping out. The one thing that she made that I just have a deep, deep memories of was a buttermilk pie. It's kind of an old-fashioned back. And we went to visit her relatives in Tennessee once, and they still, even back in the 60s and stuff, they didn't have refrigeration. So a lot of their dairy products were kept at room temperature, so they used buttermilk instead of milk. So it's just a basic custard pie that's made with buttermilk. And I don't know why this appeals to me so much, but it certainly does. I think it's a great memory. I made a lot of these when I was a kid. This is the recipe. I still remember it. When it came time to write that recipe down, I was surprised that I still remembered it. So it gives you a nice lemony flavor. I'm using a homemade crust. You can certainly go down to the grocery store if you wish. But I do make my own pie crust here. With flour, make it out of real butter. Locating all my tools through my immense disorganization tonight. Now I'm going to roll this out, nice and gentle like. I make when I make a homemade pie crust, I freeze all my ingredients separately and then combine them in a food processor. And that gives us nice little tiny chunks of butter all floating around in there. And then I do counterintuitively let it warm up just a little bit, just to make it a little bit easier to roll out. And I do have plenty of dough here, but that's okay. A little bit is good, a lot is better. So you asked me kind of maybe what some of my favorite things to do are. Favorite things to cook. I'm a baker at heart. Baker long ago. It's my favorite thing to do. Shout out. I like to do little shout outs from time to time. Shout out to Julie Smorgowitz. Some of y'all know her here in Rapid City. I baked for her for several years, and she is actually the one that convinced me time and time again that pressure was better and that local was the way to get your fresh stuff. And so though we do a lot of things here at the hospital, all based on fresh and local ingredients, we can trace all this back to Julie Smorgowitz making a difference. So a shout out to Julie wherever you are. So I've got that, and I'm sorry about the aluminum pie pan, but that's what we have here at the hospital. I'm going to get it nice and even all the way around. Now, in the essence of Grandma didn't have the gloves. I can't do this without gloves on too, so all my plastic hands come off. And I like to just roll that little inch that I gave it just right under, nice and easy like. Give it that nice crust. Because anybody can eat a spoonful of custard, and anybody can have a nice bowl of fruit with a little bit of sugar on it. What makes a pie is the crust. If you're going to pull that crust off, why make a pie? So I like to have a nice thick crust around the outside. So I just kind of roll it right up under, all the way around, picking up little fliggins on the table here. Try and get it nice and even all the way around. And then Grandma's little secret to make it look homemade. You got to kind of do the pinch and roll. Pinch, roll. Pinch, roll. And she used to make pecan pies too. I thought that'd be a little bit too much for right now. And there we have it. I've got my pie crust all ready to go. I'm going to set that aside and whip together this filling real quick. Need a little bit of a receptacle there. Now, I'm going to do 2 whole eggs. And again, I like to get grandma's texture, all this is at room temperature. So I've got 2 whole fresh eggs. Now, I would do that opposite. So it's got 3 whole fresh eggs. It should have 2 yolks and 2 fresh eggs. So, but no mistakes get made in my kitchen. We just have adaptations. So I'm going to start out. The trick to a good custard pie is a little bit at a time. So I'm going to scramble those eggs. And I'm going to add 1.5 cups of sugar. Stir that into it. A little bit of flour to kind of help bind it all together. Blend that till it's smooth. Now we're getting all of our ingredients working together. Gets a little bit of lemonness. So I've got, in this bowl, I've got a little bit of fresh lemon juice and almond extract. I like the little nuttier bit to it. So just a little splash of each. Mix that into it. The buttermilk. And this part here, the next little part that I do, I'm going to use butter here now at home. If I make this at home, this is a breakaway from Grandma's recipe. She always used butter. We'll need a couple. Let me do a cheat sheet. Got 1/2 cup of butter. I'm going to stir that into it. That's going to give it some nice body. At home, I use coconut oil because I like that. I like that coconut flavor. And
What do you need? Zester?
on my zester.
What do you need?
Ah, look where I put it first. So I'm going to take a little bit of zest. And again, this is a departure from Grandma. But I'm sure she's up in Grandma heaven looking down thinking, that's a good idea, boy. And that'll just give it that nice, fresh lemon appeal. Mix it all together good. I'll fill my pie crust up with it. There we have it. I'm going to put this into a 300-degree oven, if I can do it without spilling. It seems a little bit loose, and when it comes out, it's a little bit loose. We'll put it in a 300-degree oven. About 35 minutes.
That's up.
And there we go. See, I kind of want to, you know, if you look at like a creme brulee or a nice custard dessert, how it gets that nice crusty top on it, that's what happens to this. You'll watch it in the oven, it'll actually boil in the oven, okay, and it looks loose. But when you start seeing it get the little crust on top, it's time to pull out and let it cool down. It needs to cool down for about a half an hour to 45 minutes on the counter and then into the refrigerator. So that's what it looks like when it's done. You see it's nice and firm. Now, what we're gonna do is make a little topping for it. I'm gonna make a quick bourbon caramel pecan to go on that. So, and I need to cheat on this one, so I'm gonna be reading right off my recipe. Start out with the butter. About a 1/4 cup. And I'm gonna let it start to melt. And yes, I'm at home, it gets cluttered. Got a nice thick heavy pan here. When you're cooking with like sugars, trying to make a caramel, anything that's nice and thick, the thicker the bottom of the pan, the heavier the pan, the less likely you are to burn the product. Thin pans that shoot the heat right through. Have you ever tried to make cream of tomato soup in a real thin pan? It's almost hard to get it hot enough without stirring it constantly without burning. All right, we're just starting to melt. I'm gonna throw a few pecans in there. On there. A little brown sugar. A little vanilla. And now I'm going to let that cook for a little bit here. Melt that sugar and that butter together on those pecans. Double the lumps out of your brown sugar. And see what's happening there. It's kind of getting caramelizing around the pecans. Burn that wire. Put little lumps out of my sugar. Get it nice and warm. Basically, we just want to get it warm enough to break the sugar down to where it forms a little bit of a pastiness in the pan with the butter. The warmer it gets, the softer the sugar gets, the faster it goes. You want to keep it moving. You don't want to scorch it. And there we have it. They're all kind of coated with a nice caramely goodness. But I want a little saucy. So I'm going to add just maybe about a 1/2 cup of cream. You see as you stir the cream into it, now you're getting that nice caramel. That binds that butter and that sugar all together in a nice syrupy crunch. Now, down south they put a little molasses in it or corn syrup. Here we are very, very lucky. South Dakota has some great beehives, some super honey producers, Sunrise Honey being one of them around here. I love getting a hold of some of their honey. And it just adds a little bit of body to it. Now I want to heat that up just as it starts to bubble. You overcook it where it boils really hard. It'll get hard on you once it cools down. I just want to get it bound up. Get that nice rich color out of those pecans. Just hot enough to make a nice caramel sauce. And then, in homage to my grandpa, it's kind of a funny story. He used to always keep a big bottle of Jim Beam in the refrigerator. When I was a little kid, I'd come by, be out helping grandpa, right? And he would come in from being hot, it was Texas, we were picking up pecans or whatever. He'd go to the refrigerator, pull out his bottle of Jim Beam, and he'd knock down a shot. It always amazed me. That's cool, man. My grandpa's the greatest. So when he wasn't looking, I'd come in and I'd take a shot. Oh my gosh. Very traumatic for a young boy to take a big swig of Jim Beam. But since then, I've been able to adapt to it and appreciate it like grandpa did. But at the time, I was never going to have it again. So anyway, grandpa liked the bourbon, and I put it in with my caramel pecan.
I have 3 friends, Jim, Johnny, and Jack.
Now we'll let that rest for a minute too. Stop boiling. And that's it. Now comes the fun stuff. We're going to put everything together on a plate for you. Try and make a nice clean hole for us again. You know, I always thought when I was coming up through the ranks as a cook, I couldn't wait the day I became a chef, because then I wouldn't have to clean everything. But you know, it's just the opposite. The further up the ladder you climb, you just keep doing everything you've always done. You just got more stuff to do. But I can't sing or dance, so I cook. Okay, so I'm going to start out with a nice black plate here. I need to pull over that board. Our steak out for a moment. Those are fresh ones. All right. Now, when building a plate, say, Chris, can you grab me a number 8 scoop, gray-handed one? We're going to start out centering the plate, and I'm going to go for height first and color. Thank you. So I'm going to get about a half a cup, and then just a little bit more because we're hungry, of that beautiful, beautiful bright orange squash with all the red and green in it. Then I'm going to find a spoon or something close to it. I've got my little bit of an oily green sauce. Now, on a nice sharp knife, and nice thin cuts. Nice medium rare. Let's set 2 on this side. I'll use and a little balance there. Now remember those nice toasted grains? That's going to add a little bit of texture to us. Little pinch of parsley on top and around the edges. And a little bit of freshness. So now you got a nice crunchy salad. Got our plate.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Cut us off a nice piece of this pie. Grandma used to call it. Sorry, probably only funny, endearing to me. It is pie. And nice creamy texture on that.
Come on, somebody's hand is in the frame.
All right, gotta get pictures.
Use some of our silverware because I want a nice clean small spoon to do this. Yes, a little bit of bourbon pecan caramel sauce. Just a little bit there to give it some texture. Now the fun part, Chris, join us please. We rehearse this. Thank you. Little strawberry. And even if it's aerosol, use the real stuff. Extra creamy dairy. Just a little shot of whipped cream. And a sprig of mint. Grandma's buttermilk pie with bourbon caramel pecans. I've got an apple and jalapeno slaw. We've got mashed butternut squash, evergreen seared tenderloin, toasted ancient grains, and a little bit of chimichurri sauce. Thank you very much for being a part of our show tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. We're gonna all eat, so you guys all have fun. And we'll see you tomorrow, 4 o'clock Mountain Time, 5 Central.
Why don't you take a bite of something and I'll film it.
I'll go for the pie.
We had 35, 10 years plus 12
No.
We started making.
Grandma's smiling. That's delicious.
Scott, that looks delicious. Can we eat now?
Dig in.
All right, you guys, let's stop the filming.
Hey, grab a steak plate or grab some plates, guys.